On a quiet Kansas farm, 10-year-old Emily has never walked since her accident. Her mother, Vanessa, 32, has tried everything, doctors, therapy and money, but nothing works. That's when Luke, a humble 28-year-old farmer, whispers, "Let me try." A single act of kindness sparks hope, courage, and a miracle that will change their lives forever. Stay tuned to witness this heartfelt story on Kindsoul Stories. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. In rural Kansas, 10-year-old Emily had been unable to walk since a car accident years ago. Her days were filled with quiet frustration, watching other children run and play while she remained confined to her wheelchair. Her mother, Vanessa, 32, a driven CEO, had spent thousands on treatments, therapies and specialists, yet nothing seemed to help. Emily's small frame slumped against the wheelchair's seat, and her laughter had become rare, a fragile thing that emerged only occasionally. The summer sun cast long shadows across the countryside, emphasizing the contrast between the freedom of the outdoors and Emily's constrained world. Vanessa pushed the wheelchair along a dusty path near a small, unassuming farm. The breeze carried the scent of hay and soil, and she found herself both exhausted and anxious. Every bump in the path made Emily wince slightly, her small hands gripping the chair's sides for stability. Vanessa's own heart ached, remembering the promises she had made to herself after the accident. She wanted her daughter to experience joy, freedom, and normal childhood pleasures. Emily, sensing her mother's concern, tried to smile, but the effort revealed the toll that years of immobility had taken on her spirit. Nearby, Luke, a 28-year-old local farmer, worked steadily in the fields. His hands were rough, calloused from years of manual labor, and his clothes were streaked with dirt and sweat. Despite his rugged appearance, his eyes held warmth and attentiveness, scanning the environment with quiet awareness. When he noticed the small wheelchair struggling along the uneven dirt path, he paused mid-step, wiping his hands on a rag. Something about the scene tugged at him, the helplessness of a child, the worry etched on her mother's face. Without thinking twice, he approached cautiously, unsure how he could help but compelled by the need to do something. Luke knelt gently next to Emily, careful not to startle her. "Let me try," he said softly, his voice calm and sincere. There was no hint of arrogance, only quiet assurance. Emily's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of curiosity and surprise reflecting her cautious hope. Vanessa hesitated, uncertainty clouding her mind. She didn't know if this stranger could offer any real help, but something in his demeanor suggested honesty and a genuine willingness to try. The warmth in his expression contrasted sharply with the sterile professional interactions she had endured in hospitals and clinics. Emily shifted slightly in her wheelchair, turning her head to study Luke's face. She had never been approached by someone outside of her family or medical team with such gentle intent. The years of disappointment and failed attempts made her skeptical, yet a flicker of trust began to form. Her small hands gripped the armrest tightly as she considered his words. Could this kind, unassuming farmer actually help her? The thought both excited and frightened her. A part of her longed to take a chance, to believe that perhaps someone could make a difference when others had failed. Vanessa watched the exchange carefully, noting the subtle ways Luke engaged with Emily. He crouched at her level, keeping his gaze soft and non-threatening. His hands relaxed at his sides. There was no rush, no pressure, just patient attention. Vanessa felt her shoulders loosen slightly, a small sigh escaping her lips. She had spent so long navigating a world of urgency, appointments and expensive treatments. Yet here was a man willing to simply be present, to offer help without expectation. The contrast struck her deeply. Perhaps this simplicity held the key that all the complicated solutions had missed. Luke gestured gently toward Emily's wheelchair, as if asking permission to inspect it. "May I take a closer look?" he asked. His tone was humble, almost apologetic, yet there was an unmistakable confidence in his knowledge of mechanics and practical work. Emily hesitated, then nodded slightly, her eyes still wide. Vanessa glanced at him, uncertainty mingling with cautious hope. There was something about his presence that felt trustworthy, someone who saw the child rather than her disability, and perhaps that mattered more than the latest medical intervention. Finally, Luke examined the wheelchair, turning it slowly, testing the wheels and balance. He noticed immediately the worn-out parts, the squeaky joints, and the rust forming along the frame. Yet he didn't frown or express discouragement. Instead, he smiled lightly, as if challenges excited him. "I think I can help," he said. "Simply?" Emily leaned forward slightly, a spark of curiosity lighting her eyes. Vanessa's heart fluttered at his words. Perhaps, after all these years, a new hope had arrived, carried not on expensive machines or specialists' hands, but through the skill and kindness of a humble farmer willing to try. Luke carefully examined Emily's wheelchair, his hands moving with practiced precision as he inspected the worn wheels and stiff joints. The device had clearly seen better days, yet he didn't flinch or show discouragement. Instead, he studied each part, thinking creatively about how to repurpose materials he had on his farm. Wood, metal scraps, old bike chains, all could be transformed into something functional. He bent over the chair, muttering quietly to himself, testing mechanisms and imagining adjustments. Emily's small hands gripped the sides of her chair nervously, but her eyes followed every movement. Growing fascination. This was the first time someone seemed truly committed to helping her. Vanessa, observing from a distance, initially felt conflicted. She had seen countless professionals and experts fail to bring even minor improvements to her daughter's condition. Yet here was Luke, a stranger with no medical background, approaching the challenge with patience and ingenuity. She felt a strange mixture of skepticism and hope. Each day, as Emily watched Luke craft components and carefully measure angles, Vanessa began to notice subtle signs of progress, slight improvements in mobility, small smiles from her daughter, and an emerging sense of anticipation. The atmosphere in the farmyard shifted from doubt to cautious optimism. Luke spent long hours in his small workshop, repurposing tools and constructing the custom walking assist device. He welded, hammered, and twisted metal into supportive frames, fashioning a combination of braces and straps designed to stabilize Emily's legs. Old gears and chains were adapted to create movement mechanisms, while wooden supports were carved to fit her small frame. Emily watched intently, her eyes wide with wonder, as she saw the transformation from discarded scraps to a device that might one day allow her to stand. She leaned forward, asking questions and learning from Luke's inventive process, her curiosity slowly turning into trust. With each passing day, Emily began participating more actively. She held tools under Luke's supervision, helped him tighten screws, and observed how the mechanisms worked. Her laughter, once absent, began to echo softly across the farmyard, a sound Vanessa hadn't heard in years. Luke encouraged her gently, celebrating every small movement, every attempt to balance or flex her legs. "You're stronger than you think," he would say, his voice patient and warm. Emily's confidence grew slowly but steadily. The bond between the farmer and the child deepened based on trust, respect, and shared determination, creating a rare connection that transcended social and economic boundaries. Vanessa watched quietly, emotion rising in her chest. She had expected Luke to work mechanically, without warmth or personal investment. Yet she found herself moved by his dedication. Every day she observed subtle shifts in her daughter, improved posture, small attempts to shift weight, and a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Vanessa began to allow herself to believe again, cautiously at first, and then with growing conviction. The sight of a humble farmer dedicating himself entirely to the happiness and independence of her daughter reignited a sense of trust she hadn't felt in years. Word of Luke's unusual project began spreading quietly through the local community. Neighbors passing by noticed the peculiar sight, a man working diligently in a small farm workshop, with a little girl attentively observing each movement. Some whispered in curiosity, others stopped to watch, admiring the patience and ingenuity. Luke never sought recognition or praise. He focused entirely on Emily, making sure every component fit perfectly, every adjustment measured carefully. Vanessa noticed the difference in her daughter's demeanor. Emily's frustration began to fade, replaced by excitement and determination. Each day brought tangible progress and renewed hope that walking might finally be possible. Luke's resourcefulness amazed everyone, including Vanessa. With makeshift tools and limited resources, he managed to engineer a walking assist device that combined support, flexibility, and stability. He tested each joint, adjusted the braces, and encouraged Emily to practice small movements, celebrating every success. Emily's face would light up with pride at each tiny achievement, and her laughter became a constant presence. Vanessa's skepticism gradually transformed into awe and gratitude. She began to see that genuine care, creativity, and patience could sometimes accomplish what money and formal expertise could not. The bond between Emily and Luke grew stronger with every passing day. Finally, after weeks of tireless work, the device was complete. Luke carefully guided Emily as she tried it for the first time. With his steady hands supporting her, she shifted her weight and flexed her legs cautiously. The device responded smoothly, offering balance and stability. Emily's eyes widened with a mixture of amazement and joy as she realized she was standing, even if just a few seconds at first. Vanessa's hands flew to her face as tears welled up. She had never witnessed such a transformation. The farm, once quiet and ordinary, had become a stage for an extraordinary miracle born from patience, determination, and kindness. Every success, no matter how small, fueled further progress. Emily practiced daily, gaining confidence and learning to trust her body. Luke continued to adjust the device, fine-tuning it for comfort and mobility. Vanessa watched, emotionally moved, as her daughter's independence and spirit blossomed. The community, initially curious, began to support them, inspired by the improbable story of a farmer bringing hope to a child who had endured years of immobility. Luke's humble generosity and Emily's courage combined to create a story that would resonate far beyond the Kansas countryside, demonstrating the power of compassion and human ingenuity. Finally, the day arrived when Luke felt the device was ready for Emily to test. The early morning sunlight streamed across the farm, glinting off the polished metal and wooden braces he had painstakingly crafted. Emily's eyes were wide, a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Luke knelt beside her, adjusting straps and checking alignment one final time. "Take it slow," he whispered, gently. Emily nodded, gripping the hand supports tightly. Vanessa stood behind her daughter, heart pounding, unsure whether to hope or prepare for disappointment. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the entire farm were holding its breath. Luke supported Emily's small frame as she shifted her weight onto the device. At first, she wobbled slightly, her legs trembling after years of inactivity. Every tiny movement required courage and concentration. Luke encouraged her softly, whispering words of reassurance and steadying her with patient hands. Emily's face reflected determination mixed with disbelief. She had almost forgotten the sensation of standing. The device responded as intended, holding her upright and giving her balance. Vanessa's heart swelled as she watched the impossible begin to happen before her eyes. Tears threatened to spill as hope, long buried, started to bloom. With Luke's guidance, Emily took her first tentative step. The device glided smoothly across the dirt floor, every movement measured and supported. A small gasp escaped Vanessa's lips, her hands flying to her face in shock and joy. Emily's confidence grew with each step. The wobbles lessened, replaced by deliberate control. Luke smiled quietly, his hands hovering nearby in case support was needed. Emily glanced up at her mother, seeing both pride and disbelief mirrored in Vanessa's eyes. For the first time in years, the daughter and mother shared a moment of pure elation, united in wonder at what had been achieved through patience, ingenuity, and love. Neighbors, who had begun noticing Luke's efforts over the past weeks, gathered quietly outside the farmyard fence. When they saw Emily standing, even taking a few steps independently, their muted whispers grew into applause and cheers. Some cried, some laughed, and some simply watched in stunned silence. Vanessa's eyes were wet, and she clutched Luke's arm as the realization sank in. Her daughter was walking. The community, once distant and unaware of Emily's struggle, now witnessed firsthand the transformative power of a humble man's dedication. Luke's hands, rough and calloused, had created a miracle from scraps and determination. Encouraged by the applause, Emily began to experiment, taking longer steps and testing her balance. Luke stayed close, ready to stabilize her if necessary, but his confidence in her abilities grew with each stride. Emily's laughter rang across the farm, a sound long absent from her life, bringing tears to Vanessa's eyes. Every tiny success seemed monumental, proof that compassion, patience, and ingenuity could overcome what years of money and medical expertise had failed to fix. Luke watched her closely, pride quietly visible on his face, knowing that the countless nights of labor, trial, and error had culminated in this single life-changing moment. Vanessa knelt beside her daughter after a particularly confident step. "Doing it, Emily," she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. Emily looked at her mother, eyes shining, and gave a small, radiant smile. The bond between them, strengthened by years of struggle, now shimmered with hope and possibility. Luke's presence added a third layer of warmth and stability, his patience and kindness shaping not only Emily's movement but also the emotional landscape of the family. What had started as a simple act of assistance had evolved into a profound connection that would leave lasting impact on all three lives. As the day progressed, Emily grew bolder. She moved across the farmyard with growing ease, testing turns, shifts in weight, and small steps on uneven ground. Luke adjusted the device subtly when needed, offering praise and reassurance. Vanessa's pride was palpable. She had witnessed miracles before, but nothing compared to this. The sight of her daughter, once confined to a wheelchair, taking steps independently, ignited hope not only in her heart, but in the hearts of all who watched. The farm, a simple slice of rural life, had become a stage for something extraordinary, a testament to human compassion and perseverance. By the afternoon, the crowd of neighbors had grown larger. Word of Emily walking had spread through the nearby town, drawing more people curious to witness the momentous event. Children cheered, adults clapped, and some cried quietly, moved by the extraordinary display of determination, ingenuity, and kindness. Luke stood slightly to the side, humble and unassuming, letting Emily take center stage. Vanessa hugged him briefly, unable to thank him enough. Her gratitude was endless, but words seemed insufficient. Luke merely smiled and nodded, quietly, satisfied that his efforts had restored freedom, joy, and independence to a young girl who had long been denied it. As the sun began to set, painting the farm in warm golden tones, Emily moved confidently across the yard. Vanessa followed closely, keeping her hands ready but no longer necessary. The device, carefully crafted with scraps, ingenuity, and patience, had fulfilled its promise. Luke watched quietly, pride swelling in his chest, not for recognition but for the transformation he had enabled. Emily turned to him with a wide grin, full of trust and gratitude. Vanessa joined in the smile, the three forming an image of hope, love, and possibility. That day, a poor farmer's compassion had not only changed one child's life, it had inspired an entire community to believe in the unexpected power of kindness.